All right, let me start with some football. You know, it's not that long ago that the Houston Texans were building a bully. And if I'm starting with the Texans on a Friday before the weekend we're having, you know there's a good reason for it. So they were building that bully not that long ago. Remember, they were stacked on defense. Guys like Jadeveon Clowney, future Hall of Famer J.J. Watt. They had another future Hall of Famer in DeAndre Hopkins, an all-pro left tackle in Dwayne Brown. Then they drafted Deshaun Watson. I mean, this thing was setting up beautifully, right? You had a couple of fierce pass rushers, an elite wide receiver, a stud tackle, and a franchise quarterback. So if you're looking to assemble a roster, that's the kind of stuff that you dream about. That's what everybody in that league is looking to do. Get yourself elite players at those positions. And then it's not a matter of if you win a Super Bowl, but rather how many you're going to win. They were building that thing. They were building a bully and a monster. And the Texans have managed to do absolutely none of that. Come to find out, Dwayne Brown shipped out. Jadeveon Clowney, gone. DeAndre Hopkins, traded for a couple of footballs. And now Deshaun Watson is reportedly pissed, really pissed at the organization. And my only question is, what took him so long? This has been a complete bleep show for years now. They're lucky that Deshaun is such a decent guy and a team player and a leader. They're lucky it hadn't already reached that point, because just about every other person on the planet in his position would have demanded a trade months ago. I mean, you remember that somewhat cryptic tweet from earlier this week after reports had emerged that Nick Caserio was going to be the new GM? At that time, remember, Watson tweeted, quote, "Something's never changed," end quote. It wasn't exactly clear then what that was about. Now it's a lot more clear, because now we know, according to multiple reports, team owner Cal McNair had told Watson that he would be involved in the hiring process for the GM and the coach. And then they went out and they hired Caserio without informing Watson. Not only did they not inform him, he reportedly found out about that hiring on Twitter. Now, I'm not going to say that that's a dumb way of handling things. I'll just say that's a moronic way of handling things. I mean, that is really asinine. There are so many layers to this tiramisu of stupidity that is the Texans ownership right now. Let me read a few lines from a JLC report back in October. Quote, specifically, owner Cal McNair has already talked to starting quarterback Deshaun Watson about the direction of the team going forward and solicited his opinion according to sources with knowledge of the situation. It goes on, quote, while Watson will not be a formal part of the team that chooses the next coach, and McNair intends to hire the GM first, the owner does value very much the feedback of his highest paid player. And sources said Watson has already advocated for Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, end quote. All right, so that there sounds like a pretty good plan. The owner wants to get a take from his franchise player as part of the process of determining who the next head coach is going to be. And then the player stumps for the one coach in particular, and it just so happens to be the guy who is the hottest coordinator in football. The guy who won a Super Bowl last year and is primed to win another Super Bowl. The guy who has helped mold Patrick Mahomes. So in any functional, well-run organization with competent ownership, I wouldn't say that it's a slam dunk that Bieniemy gets that gig, but he'd have to be at the top of your list. And then you go up another level when your franchise quarterback says, that's my guy. That's the guy that I want. I mean, this is easy. This is a no-brainer, except in Houston. Because not only is Bieniemy not poised to get that job right now, he didn't even get an interview with Houston. Let me repeat that. According to reports, the Texans have not interviewed Eric Bieniemy for their head coaching position. I mean, that's not just dumb. That is criminally stupid. He should have been on your list from the very beginning and should have been underlined after Deshaun Watson said, that's the guy that I want. That's my guy. Not only was he not on the list, these clowns didn't even bother interviewing him. Not only did the Texans not interview Eric Bieniemy, they're the only team with an opening to not interview Eric Bieniemy. So at this point, you have to go way out of your way not to interview Bieniemy. And when you do that, you're going way out of your way to offend your franchise quarterback. And for who? For what? Why would you do that? Even if you don't want Bieniemy as your head coach, you know what? Fire up the Zoom, interview the guy anyway. What's it going to cost you? A couple hours at most? And that way you keep your franchise quarterback feeling like you do give a damn about him. But instead, you don't interview Bieniemy, and essentially you're giving Deshaun Watson the big middle finger. No wonder the guy's pissed. Man, if I were him, I'd be screaming from the rooftops for a trade. I would find the highest rooftop there is and demand a trade nonstop until they did it. In fact, I would have been doing that months ago. I would have been doing that if I were Deshaun Watson when they didn't tell me they were trading DeAndre Hopkins. I'd be spray painting it all over H-Town after the coaching search debacle now. And then when it came to hiring Nick Caserio, according to Adam Schefter, quote, Watson offered input on potential GM candidates, but the Texans neither considered nor consulted with those endorsed by their franchise quarterback, end quote. So they didn't even consider this guy's advice. Awesome job. Really top-notch work. Oh, and it wasn't just that they met once or that Watson just referenced his thoughts in passing. Schefter says that Watson met with Cal McNair multiple times, that he didn't expect to be the one making the decisions, but he hoped that he could represent his own thoughts and the thoughts of the other players in the locker room. And still they ignore this guy. I mean, what a waste of Watson's time. You know, kind of like everything he's done in Houston since he got there. Because a guy this good should be having way more team success than he is. Instead, you've got guys like Watson and J.J. Watt just spinning their wheels, wasting prime years of their Hall of Fame careers, while the rest of the organization is a complete bleep show. Hey, listen, it's Cal McNair's team, right? He can do whatever the hell he wants. I'm not even saying that he has to consult with Watson on any of this. I would just say that it would be smart to make sure that your quarterback is on the same page and feels like his opinion does matter. You know, but do what you want. It's your team. But what you can't do is tell him that his opinion matters and that he'll have input and then just completely ignore the guy every step of the way. Allegedly. So if that really is how that went down, that is self-destruction of the highest order. So to recap, the team has consistently dealt away premium talent for pennies on the dollar because their previous head coach / GM liked to do that sort of thing. They tell their franchise quarterback they want his input when it comes to hiring a new GM and a head coach. Then they completely ignore his input. Not only do they ignore it, they go way out of their way to disrespect it and make decisions on their own. And then after they do that, they don't bother communicating with him about any of the decisions they made without him. In other words, if you were setting out to piss off the best quarterback in franchise history and create an environment where you have to trade him, then you could not have done a better job. I mean, you may as well just dare this guy. Dare this guy to demand a trade and force his way out of town. Hey, and by the way, hell of a spot for Nick Caserio to walk into, right? Through no fault of his, the star quarterback is pissed, and now he's got to solve a serious problem that he didn't create. Caserio. By all accounts, Cal McNair tossed Caserio the keys to a Ferrari, but made sure to set that thing on fire before he did so. Sharp business strategy right there. Like the whole point of firing Bill O'Brien was that you could get a clean start, a full reset. And yet somehow they made it even worse. And given what a disaster the Bob was, man, that takes work. That is not easy. That takes a ton of work. Well done. So now why don't you just give Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt away and just be done with it altogether? That is a disaster. Man, you know it's bad if I'm starting a Friday with a full-length, long-form rant on the Texans on Super Wildcard Weekend. Could not be handling that situation any worse than they are. 1-800-636-8686. In terms of the weekend, I want to talk about the Browns and the Steelers. I mean, Cleveland is not playing the best hand, right? They got to play the hand they have, but they're not playing the best hand. And then there's Juju disrespecting them. I've got thoughts, lots of thoughts on that. Indianapolis has to deal with Buffalo, and the Bills look loose. They look loose. They look confident. They look like they're in a really good headspace. I want to get into that